Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood doc here. I'm going to talk about what books I picked up this week. Guys, it's almost been a year since I've been doing these videos. It blows my mind. And unfortunately, my main shop here in Memphis still had some distribution issues from Diamond. So I picked up most of the books that I got for last week, or I was supposed to get last week. And I only got to pick up 2 new books for this week. So let's go ahead and get cracking because I've got a massive, massive list ahead of me here. All right, we will start with Absolute Superman issue number 2 by Jason Aaron, Rafa Sandoval. And this issue picks up where we meet Lois Lane as a peacekeeper against Superman. And when she attacks him, much like the Eradicator was designed to do, the suit protects the wearer. So this story, with this really interesting artwork, and I mean interesting in a good way, with this interesting artwork by Sandoval, is a story where we get to see Lois Lane handcuffed to Superman for the majority of this story, and she gets to understand that he's not the rebel and the disruptor that people thought that he was. Instead, she comes to respect him to the point that towards the end of the book, the Brainiac algorithm, so you might as well say Brainiac, tries to write the report for her using AI. And it asks her, for example, on a 1 to 10 scale, 1 to 11 scale, how dangerous would you think that this character is? She said, I wouldn't consider him dangerous. Then it comes back and automatically spits out that he's an 8 out of a 10. So you do get to see an interesting thing where they use this AI to write reports, and Lois Lane absolutely hates writing reports on her own. So she always uses this Brainiac AI. Well, since she sees that this AI is not going to give Cal a fair shake, then she decides to write this on her own and do her own reports. And one of her subservients here says, you know that you yelled at me for 30 minutes one day when I asked you to write a motor pool request. And she's like, yeah, but I got this. So you get the birth of Lois Lane as a strong female writer, as well as a, peacekeeper and soldier and things of that nature. So this book was much stronger than the first issue. It didn't go back into the tropes of, these people are held down by this particular society and we're not going to allow that to continue to happen. It didn't fall back into that. Instead, it created an interesting and what's the word I want to use? You know what? We're going to stick with interesting. An interesting narrative that pulled me in, that came at me from a different angle than what I was expecting after that first issue. So I don't feel like I'm being preached to, and I don't feel like this Superman is going to be an underdog. So I'm actually more interested in seeing what happens with issue 3 than I thought I ever would be. All right, next up, we have issue 3, speaking of 3, Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 3 of 10, with words by Jeff Loeb and art by Mark Chiarello and letters from Richard Starkings. Hang on a second. Come on, little baby. Come on, get down. So you still have Jeff Loeb and multiple artists, a different artist for each issue, from what I understand, doing this love letter to what The Long Halloween was. And in this issue, you've got Mark Chiarello doing some really amazing stuff. You see the Riddler, as he is kind of pointed out by Batman as the person that can help figure out who the new holiday killer is. And throughout this, you've got Robin, who's learning to be Robin, and Batman tells him, I'm going to go to Arkham. Do not follow me to Arkham. You go on your own path. And still, Robin, as Robinists want to do, goes and tries to talk to the calendar man and try to discern what kind of information he can get from the calendar man. Meanwhile, Bruce has to find James Gordon's son, and in order to do that, they have to dress up in mask, James and Batman, and, some of the police dress up in these Batman masks and attack the Riddler, so that Bruce can question him. Well, now Bruce decides that he wants to go talk to one of the Falcones, Mario Falcone, and he thinks that Mario has a lot more to do with Holiday than he's letting on. And at the end of the issue, there was a big surprise, which I'm not going to let out of the bag. But I've got to say, I never read the original The Long Halloween. I do have the 2021 special, and I have downloaded some of the issues of Dark Victory onto my reading devices. But I've got to say, reading this by itself, it's extremely tight, it's extremely strong, and it is Batman being Batman. So I'm definitely along for the ride all the way through issue 10. All right. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. I can't show you too many pages of this, but I will say that our two main protagonists finally do get it on in the appropriate colloquialism. They come together as a unit. They become one. And this is going to disturb the natural balance of things as it is. But I will show you a few pages. This artwork is really, really, really awesome. It's got a scratchy feel to it, but to be honest, it really reminds me of Tom Mandrake. I think it's a lot like Tom Mandrake would have drawn these issues. His Spectre run, some of his Swamp Thing stuff from back in the 80s. It's very reminiscent to me of that particular art style. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it could also be, this particular panel looks very much like Rick Vetch with Alfredo Alcala doing inks. So this is by Jerry Duggan and Gary Brown and Chris O'Halloran, and it's absolutely one of Image's strongest titles right now. It's on issue 6, and if you haven't read it yet, I would say wait for the trade and pick up that first trade. And if you like some kooky, offbeat, we're going to fall in love with each other under very strange, mysterious circumstances, if that's the kind of stuff that you dig, then this book is right up your alley. All right. We have Feral, which is my pick of the week this week, by Tony Fleeks and Trish Forstner, with Tone Rodriguez helping on the artwork. We get to see, let's see. Come on, page. Work for me here. So we get to see this house where all of the cats are. And it's almost like a crazy cat lady has taken them in. But the longer that Elsie and company hang out in this house, Elsie starts to realize this is not a safe place. There's more going on than meets the eye. There's cats that are being malnourished. The entire house is a litter box. It's not a healthy nor safe environment, no matter how much they would try to delude themselves that it is. So this book just continues to get stronger and stronger. I read one issue of Stray Dogs, but this is an ongoing rather than Stray Dogs, which was a miniseries. And I got to tell you, between the artwork that looks like something Don Bluth would have come up with back in the 80s and the gripping story that Tony Fleeks has come for this title, this is definitely one of the best titles that I'm reading currently. And you wouldn't think that it being a story with cats and a plague and things like that it would be that intriguing. But these cats all have their own personalities, just like real cats. They have their own personalities, and they tend to bring out the best in themselves and push the limits occasionally. But at the end of the day, they take care of one another. So it's really, really a great story. All right. We finally have the final issue of Frankenstein under the Universal Monsters banner on Image and Skybound. Has anybody else noticed how many Image books I have? This is they're becoming much more prevalent than Marvel and DC. So this is written and illustrated by Michael Walsh with Toni Marie Griffin helping out by doing colors. And this completes the story of Henry Frankenstein and the monster. And it's crazy, but these Universal Monsters series, starting with Dracula by James Tynion and Werther Dell'Edera, or Martin Simmons, I'm sorry, they kind of feed between the lines of these Universal Monsters movies. So you'll pick up from page to page or panel to panel occasionally stuff that you've seen in the actual monster movies back in the day, almost shot for shot. But in the meantime, you get all of this other really interesting stuff. See, this kind of stuff is right out of the movie. But you also get a son who watched his father get grave robbed after he had passed. And it's, you're kind of like, how is this going to work out? Now, this is a very interesting and very Franco-Francavilla setup right here, where you've got the picture of the hanged man in the front, in the foreground, and then you've got all these people that were clamoring for him to die, watching in utter anticipation for him to die. And then you've got Frankenstein at the back. Then you have this image that's out of the movie where Frank is just trying to live his life, and he runs up on this little girl. He sees how much fun it is to throw flowers. He throws her into the water. She can't swim. And now we have a monster created out of something very, very unintentional. So, and here's the boy who lost his father. So I've got to say, this is pretty much a Frankenstein with reshoots, or a Frankenstein 1.5. So if you like these Universal Monster movies, then you're going to like these books. I don't know which book is coming out next, but so far Dracula, The Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives, and now Frankenstein have all been top-notch stuff. So I can't wait to see what else Robert Kirkman and Skybound come out with in their next 4 or 5 issue mini. All right, next up we have Grommets, issue 6 of 7. So it's the penultimate issue. We are almost at the finish line here. We had a fight between the jocks, and I'm going to lovingly use the term pothead kids in the last issue, and now we see what has happened afterwards, because the jocks come and just kick the crap out of some of these kids. The cops get called. Hector, who's the main jock here, finds a gun in his face, and just when he's ready to, okay, well, if you're man enough to do this, then go ahead. Then the cops show up, and Hector's like, I'll see you later. I'll catch you later. But this is, from what I've read and what I've been told, this is a semi-autobiographical book from Rick Remender and Brian Posehn, and then the art is by Brett Parson. And so this is kind of how they grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. And if you grew up in that time, or you grew up in the 80s, this is definitely going to click all the boxes for you, between the skaters and, some Van Halen mixed in there, trying to get the girl, all these things together. You're going to kind of feel like you're in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But I hate to see this come to a conclusion after only one more issue. But hey, it's been a very solid story, and I'm thoroughly happy that I picked it up. I happened to see Mike Spider Slayer talk about this book for the first issue when it first came out. And so I picked it up pretty much on his recommendation. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate that heads up for this book because it's been great. All right, we're getting towards the bottom of the pile here, folks. We have Void Rivals, written by Robert Kirkman with art by Lorenzo De Felici. And I believe it's inks by Patricio Del Pech. No, colors by Patricio. So we still have Salila, I believe, and Derek, and they both made it back to their respective planets. And Derek has pretty much been chided by his father as a loser, and you know, I sent you on this mission. You failed me miserably. You're now you come back here, and you want me to be happy about seeing you. You want me to praise you. Some fathers are like that. They just demand more and more and more of their sons or their stepsons or things like that. And as things go along, you got to give the kid a little bit of leeway to either do well or mess up. And it has to be on their terms. So his father eventually relents, lets him get back in another ship and go out into space. And he almost runs into Hot Rod. So now we've got another Transformers connection. And meanwhile, Salila is walking through this darkened tunnel. She pulls out a clip of Energon to light the way and falls into a hole. Meanwhile, we have the Quintessons. So this thing just keeps getting bigger with each issue. The Transformers tie-ins are starting to really pull together. You've got G.I. Joe tie-ins that will come eventually, I believe. Maybe not, but we've seen the rebirth of G.I. Joe as well as the Transformers from Skybound and Image. Robert Kirkman has taken these properties on lovingly because they're part of his childhood as they are of mine. So if you haven't checked out Void Rivals, I think there may even be 2 trade paperbacks with the first 12 issues out. If you love this kind of stuff, it is not just written... It's gone its own way, okay? It's not just written to sell toys or sell comics or sell... It's a deep story about these 2 warring planets that have been at war for as long as anybody can remember. But apparently there is more to meet the eye, excuse me, with these 2 warring factions because they don't see each other's face. And then when the 2 main characters eventually see each other's face, they realize how similar they are to one another. So it's a story about humanity. It's a story about being kind to someone when you don't know who they are or what they're going through. And it's now a story with Transformers and multiple warring planets. So I'm down for it. All right, next, second to last, we have Spawn. Spawn, I've been reading Spawn since 350. I have about the first 35 issues or so of Spawn, which I intend to sit down and read one day. Not in one fell swoop, but, 5 issues here, 5 issues there, and get caught up on the origins of where Spawn came from. This was a really, really strong book this week. It would probably be my second favorite book out of everything that I read because you've got the Brett Booth artwork, which never disappoints. I have noticed that Brett's artwork is a little bit sketchier than it used to be back in the day, but the main story here is you've got Spawn, and he's trying to figure out what's going on with these dead zones. And meanwhile, you have the Curse, who is a longtime character in the book, and he knows more about these dead zones than what he lets on, so he calls Lyra and Spawn to not attack him, but to come discuss, and he's like, I can fix the dead zones. I can make them go away and seal them back up, and everybody can have their powers back. Heaven and hell can have their powers back. And Spawn tells him that he's crazy because he said, why would you want to do that? But at the end of the day, Spawn and Lyra decide that they're going to go back and help the Curse with his mission. And from what I've been told, Rory McConville is the writer on this title, and then Brett Booth is the artist. But from what I have been told, Todd McFarlane himself is going to come back and start writing the title again with issue 360. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I know that the Dead Zones can't stay gone forever, so I've got a feeling that around 362, 363, things will probably pick back up because, like I said, you can't have Spawn be depowered for the next 3.5, 4 years and realistically expect him to survive. He even said that in the book. He said, I've got a ton of military training, but I can't rely on that to keep me alive indefinitely. So, awesome pickup. If you're not reading Spawn, you can pretty much pick up anywhere that you want to, I would say. Or you can wait until next month and you'll get issue 360, and Todd will be back on the writing, and we will all see where we go from there. All right, next to last issue is the Tin Can Society, issue 3 of 9. Peter Warren with writing assist by Rick Remender, art by Francesco Mobili. And really the crux of this title here is that you get to find out that two of the main characters, just like you see on the cover, had fallen in love. Two of the friends had fallen in love. One was the superhero, and one was his lady friend. And throughout this, they kept it quiet. They never told their group of friends, which, we might as well call them our gang. They never told the friends about their relationship. But at the same time, they fell for one another. And as they fell for one another, they came to love each other more, understand each other more, back each other up, until it came to a point where, let's see, where did it go? Where the good guy was not a good guy. As he says, I think I messed up. So, at the beginning of this story, then, it looked like the good guy was all good. And he had created this suit for himself because he was immobile to an extent. And he created this so that he could get around. And more importantly, he created it so he could be a superhero. Who doesn't want to be a superhero? But at some point, he messed up. And when he messed up, then that brought down a bunch of villains on top of his head. And somebody killed him. So you don't know whether it was a villain that killed him. You don't know whether it's one of his friends. So far, this murder mystery is very interesting because it's still continuing to go, and you don't really know which direction it's going to go just yet. You don't really have one guy or one lady that you can pick out and say, he did it, she did it. So you just have to kind of go with the flow and roll with it. It's at issue 3 out of 9, so we're a third of the way through. I've got a feeling by the time we get to issue 5 or so, we'll probably get a big reveal. But for right now, I'm enjoying rolling with this. It's fun. The energy, the artwork is energetic. It just pulls you in to these two characters, and you get to care about them more than just being a man and a woman in this story. You find out that they fall in love. You find out that she loses him in a certain way, even though he was still alive. So this is really great stuff. And 2 thumbs up to Peter Warren and Francesco Mobili and Rick Remender. All right, and the last issue that I picked up so far this week is Walking Dead Deluxe issue 102. We're over halfway done, folks. We are over halfway done with the Walking Dead Deluxe. And it does look really, really great in color. It looks amazing in color. So I don't know that it would have become the cultural phenomenon that it did if it had been in color originally. I think the black and white gives it a certain aesthetic that you can't match with a color book. But to see these in bright colors and to kind of put not necessarily a name with a face type of thing, but there's, in your own mind, there's always been a way that Dwight looks. There's always been a way that Rick looks. There's been a color palette in your mind of how these characters look. And I think Dave McCaig, as colorist, does an amazing job of bringing that world to life. And in this issue, we still have the fallout from Negan and the character that he killed a few issues back in issue 100. And Rick makes a decision, but which decision does he make? Does he decide to go after Negan and get revenge? Or does he decide to play along and give them half of everything that they own as far as supplies? I don't know. We'll have to keep reading. Guys, that was a stack and a half of books. That was a lot of books. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. What did you guys pick up at the shop this week? Did you have any issues with Diamond this week as well, like I did? Hopefully not. Hopefully they got sorted out. And to me, it's crazy. I understand that the other big Diamond warehouse was far away from here, but I live in Memphis, which is probably about 20 minutes away from Olive Branch, where the new, main distribution hub is going to be, and has been for quite a while. So it's not like they're building a brand new building and building from the ground up, literally. It's just that they're moving operations from one place, shutting it down, and bringing everything over to Olive Branch. Anyway, I just thought it was kind of odd. It's kind of like we're 6 hours away from the Gulf Coast, which is one of the most fished and shrimped areas in the entire world. And then you go to the grocery store to go pick up frozen shrimp, or you go out to Red Lobster to go eat some shrimp, and it's expensive as all get out. I don't understand some of the logistics of how this world works. But anyway, enough about that. Let's keep talking comics. You guys pop down in the comments below what you picked up at the shop this week. What is your local shop? I'd like to know where I've got people coming from. Is everybody from Memphis? Is everybody from the South? Where are we from? So pop down in the comments and let me know what city and state you're in, and let me know what your local shop is. Sometimes the wife and I do like to travel, and maybe I'll hit one of your favorite shops and see you out there on the road. Thanks, guys. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so, and we will catch up with you in the next video. Take care.